Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is Courage to Change podcast. This is our first episode. We are so excited to finally have this off the ground. We got our room set up, we got our microphones. Hopefully, this is working. Um, this is our first time, so I guess we'll find out. Oh, Mike.
Yeah, we'll wing it good.
So, our goal is to have episodes with guests in the recovery world and clients and providers and just talk about recovery stories and then the challenges we face with our current system and how to improve on that. It's a journey. So we wanted to today just kind of talk about courage to change and how we got here and who we are, in case anybody that's watching doesn't know who we are. My name is Christina Anderson, and I'm currently the vice president of our board. And this is Mike Kersey.
Hi, I'm Mike.
He's the president of our nonprofit. I also call him a caped crusader, although he doesn't wear the cape very often. Um, so basically, Mike and I started this back in 2016. We were a DBA and called Courage to Change Housing. And at that time, we were managing a 30-bed facility in Linwood. It was both men and women, and we got a lot of clients out of treatment and Department of Corrections. Um, but the co-ed living environment was a little bit tumultuous. For some reason, people new in recovery think that getting into a relationship within the first 30 days of sobriety is the best thing to possibly do. So that was tricky, but very rewarding. And there was no other greater feeling than to have a house meeting with 30 clients and every single one of them being able to pass their UA. Um, it was good. So we ran that for a couple of years, and then we lost our lease. And then COVID happened, and so Courage to Change changed to Courage to Change Recovery Services, and we started focusing mainly on transportation to get clients into detox and treatment. And so I'll have Mike elaborate on this, but basically, we would take the van and pick the client up wherever they were. Sometimes they were coming out of the woods, right, Mike?
Sometimes.
Out of the trap house, still in active addiction. Um, and we'd put them in the van and drive them to wherever there was an open bed. Sometimes that was hours away. And especially during COVID, a lot of the treatment centers were short staffed or shut down because of a COVID outbreak. So we were driving everywhere from the border
Border to Chehalis,
to Chehalis, which
Washington,
is
sometimes further
mhm,
south.
yeah, and so we did that for a few years. And one of the big contentions was when a client was getting out of detox, they didn't have a safe place to go until they got into treatment, which is, always the goal is to go seamlessly from one to the other. But it doesn't always happen that way. And so sometimes there's 2 or 3 days that they are waiting, and sometimes it could be up to 30 days. And so, without a place for the client to transition to in the interim, they were most likely going back to the trap house or whatever toxic environment they came from in the first place. Then they would relapse, and then Mike would pick them up again. So we were finding that we were transporting the same client 6 or 7 times.
Over and over again.
And I would say, gosh, I wish we just had like, I would call it a pound. Like, where's the pound? Can't we just put them somewhere where they can just be safe, sober, held accountable just for that small moment of time? It's so crucial, and so in 2020, a place came available in Everett. It was a bunkhouse, is a bunkhouse, and so it was already outfitted with the bunk beds. It just needed a little sprucing. Um, but we were able to move in here, and it currently has 16 clients and 2 on-site managers. And we've been running that for, I guess, 5 years now. And we
Six, yeah, five.
almost 6, yeah.
In 2020, so yeah, going 6 years on
And we've
December.
had over 400 maybe 450 clients come through. And the design was to hold people between detox and treatment. Um, and then if they completed treatment and they wanted to return to next place, we could offer them, if we had a bed, a place for up to 90 days. And this it's really worked. We have right now a 68% success rate for people that are able to stay sober when they come into Nick's place and leave clean and sober. They go on to Oxford housing or their own apartment or, whatever that transition is. But those first 90 days are so crucial in somebody's recovery story. And we don't shoot the wounded. We understand that sometimes relapse is part of their recovery. Or part of their journey. If somebody relapses, we'll give them the option for detox. We'll get them in there. And then if we have a 2 week wait period for them to return. And that is a really long 2 weeks. We've had some really good kids. I call them kids. They're not kids. They're all in their 40s, 30s, 40s. But I really worry if they walk out those doors, if I'm ever going to see them again. And, we have had a handful of clients that have lived here that have since passed away from their addictions. And Mike's had how many people in the van now?
91.
91 clients that he's transported to detox and that have relapsed and died. This is a very rewarding work, but it can be heartbreaking. But yeah, so that's kind of where we are now and what we're working on. So we have Nick's Place, which was named after Nick McGlashan, and he lost his battle with addiction in 2020. And Mike can tell you a little bit more about Nick and his relationship.
Um, well, Nick would, those of you don't know, Nick was a fisherman, and he'd go fishing and do good and come home and have a bunch of money and spend it on drugs and other things. And he was a really good kid when he was clean and sober. And I got a relationship with Nick. I reached out to him one time when he wasn't doing well, and he called and we got him help. And he just kind of became a part of Courage to Change early on, and wanted to be a part of helping people like a lot of addicts and alcoholics do when they first get clean and they want to help. And so we kind of brought him in, and he helped us quite a bit with people, and he'd on occasion ride with me and take people to detox, which was really cool. um but yeah, it was just, he was sometimes like a rat in a wheel. He'd get clean and sober and fall off and go fishing, and it was just not a good thing. But anyway, Nick and I spent a lot of time together, and he just would there was just no excuse for it. I couldn't get through to him. He would get around those people and just want to use. So with that being said, in 2020, it was December 27th of 2020, he lost his battle with addiction. And it was really crushing because I had talked to him just before Christmas, and he goes, yeah, he was trying to get ready to go to Alaska, and of course he didn't make it. 2 days later, he was dead. But yeah, it was just one of those things, unfortunately, that we'd have to deal with in addiction. Waiting for that phone call, or getting that phone call that somebody's passed on. And I've had 91 of them in my van. We've taken 650 plus people to detox and treatment. And here at Nick's Place, some come here and some don't. A lot of those are women, of course, that don't, because we just house men at this point, but we do want to get a woman's house going. But so yeah, it could be very trying at times. Because you get an attachment to people, especially when you get a report. Because usually people don't just call me out of the blue. It does happen, but a lot of times I have a rapport with a lot of people that have relapsed and need help. So with that being said, it's not my first rodeo with them, maybe I had talked to them for quite some time to, you know, just to be their friend and get trust. So they knew who to call when they did need help. And so, my phone's been ringing all day, but, yeah, just, I don't know what else to say. You can cut that part out.
No, no editing. We're just going for it. It's all authentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, we paid homage to Nick and named Nick's place after him. And it is a men's only shelter. So I think that that's actually best. Um, it keeps the guys focused on one thing at a time. Um, but our goal has always been to open a Nick's place for women. Um,
I
uh,
call it Amanda's place.
oh yes, yes. We already have a client that we would honor. Fortunately and unfortunately. But we have not had the funding. It is expensive to run a facility like this. Our I think our monthly operating budget is about $10,000 a month. A lot of that is fuel, and right now with the three vehicles we have, we're driving 8,000 miles a month. Um, so that's a lot, and and then the rent and expenses and just the supplies for the house. Somehow 18 men can go through just a ton of toilet paper and supplies and supplies. So and then the insurance is a lot. For some reason, nobody wants to insure us because of the demographic. I don't know. Um, but even though Mike and I are pretty much volunteer, we've been doing this for a decade. Um, we just suit up and show up, and somehow that makes great changes for these people in their lives. Someone knowing that somebody is out there that does care and that is consistent. And if we say we're going to show up, we do. And, in Mike and his transportation, he doesn't just drive them to detox and drop them off. He makes sure that they get in the door because oftentimes certain detox centers won't take addicts with particular combinations of drugs in their system. And so when Mike's receiving these calls, he's vetting them over the phone to kind of deduce which treatment center would be most appropriate. Because
That's the way it works. It's too much to go into. Every detox center has, different criteria. There's highest level of care where it would be, full medical. There's also dual diagnosis. When they're opening up a new one, I just found out today that today is the last. Well, I won't say the name, but they're going to be closing and they're opening up a new facility with 18 beds for detox, 18 beds or 16 beds for detox, 16 beds for crisis, and then 32 beds for I think it was 32 beds. Don't quote me on the bed, but for treatment. So it'll be all around. There'll be detox, dual diagnosis for mental illness and treatment,
yeah,
all in one, and that's going to be amazing.
that's huge. And oftentimes the clients that were um, probably born fairly mentally stable can go into psychosis. Do they still call it meth-induced psychoses? Um, which will add a layer of schizophrenia that they didn't have before. And sometimes, what am I boring you?
No, I'm just tired.
So the dual diagnosis is very important, in my opinion. In my opinion, there are not um, enough mental health facilities. Um, they closed down a lot of the mental hospitals, like in the 70s or 80s, and they didn't really open anything new. I mean, granted, there was awful systemic abuse happening in those facilities, um, but we still have a problem with mental health. In my opinion, the people on the streets, um, the biggest issue uh, is going to be mental health and addiction. There's also circumstantial homelessness and domestic violence and things like that. But and most of the clients will say that it's a lot easier to sleep on the streets if you're high, and it's unsafe, and they feel like they might get robbed or hurt, so they'll stay up all night on purpose so that they feel safer. So it's just a compounded issue, and so that's kind of one of the main reasons we wanted to start this podcast, just so we could bring people in that have lived experience and knowledge, and hear from the clients of what worked and where the system was broken down, where can we improve. I was talking at the last fundraiser we had at Recovery Cafe, and I was saying how we had a 68% success rate, and I said, I'd really like to look at the 32% we weren't able to help. What was it? Where was the breakdown? And I just feel like our successes are only as good as our failures. Um, and I understand you can't help everybody, and we're a small team and we do what we can. But at the end of the day, I know we can do better. We can do better as a society and as a community, and it can happen on a micro level. So I want to bring in some minds that are well versed in this field, that can shed some light on
I agree.
it. Mike, would you like to tell your story, your recovery story?
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell some of that. So, I, I've got 26 years clean. Um, I started out at a very young age with, alcohol and smoking pot and, so on, and was just escalated. And I was considered myself kind of a garbage can, in later days, whatever was there was there. And, but my recovery story, starts, I was 39 years old when I got clean. And, it was like I was like a rat in a wheel. And, every few years I get in trouble, end up in the court systems, end up, being forced to go to meetings and, you know, different, jail. I never spent any significant time in prison, but I did go to jail a number of times, and I was able to, get an attorney or whatever and help me along my path, I guess you'd say. But the last time I had to throw 5 years in prison over my head, and I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I just decided it was time for a change. And so I decided I was going to do whatever it took this time, whatever it took to stay clean and sober. That's what I was going to do. And so I started going to meetings. Through the court systems, of course, because I was required to go to 2 meetings. I got in a little trouble, and then I was required to go to 4 meetings. I got a little more trouble again. Then, yeah, by the time the first couple months of probation, I was going to 7 meetings a week, right? And, a book study, a step study, and then just whatever meetings I wanted to go to. And so I did, and I got in with a group of guys. There was 5 or 6 of us that had made that same decision, that we were just sick and tired, and we all just kind of hung together, and we did everything together. We would go camping, uh, fishing. I mean, whatever it was, we just stuck together like glue. And I think there's only a couple of us left, uh, from that first period. I would like to think that some of them are still. So I know one of them is, but I don't know about the rest of them. But and then I've just made friends over the years. And that's really my whole community is clean and sober. Everybody that I deal with, because I just don't go down that path anymore. I don't have any desire to even look back. My life has come full circle from where I was to where I am today, and I just don't want to go back the other way. But I had a probation officer, and I just gonna tell his name. He's actually written a couple of books now, but his name is Conrad Thompson, and he sat me down and made me read my rap sheet, right? And so I just sitting there looking. He goes, "No, read it out loud." I want you to read it to me. And I did. And, I looked down there and I felt about, you know, I could have crawled under the carpet. That's how small I felt from some of the stupid shit I had done over the years. And, um, and it really was. It was just a lot of stupid stuff. The last time, the 5 years, the last time I got in trouble, the state of Washington had come out with a new road rage law, and they wanted to prosecute me. I was the first road rage incident where I'd been in 3 accidents in the same intersection in a very short period of time, in like a week, right? And I was running people off the road is what I was doing. I mean, that's just plain and simple. And so they wanted to make an example of me. And I actually went to Conrad with my probation officer, and I missed the meetings a few times because I just couldn't quit. And I knew what was going to happen when I went into that probation meeting the first time. And so finally I got up the nerve and I told myself, I'm not going to use today. I'm not going to use and that night before. And a friend of mine comes over and I'm off and running and I couldn't not miss that probation meeting. And so I actually drove myself to the probation meeting, and I had a car that I borrowed that wasn't in my name, and so on and so forth, what we do, right? And I pulled into the parking lot at the courthouse, and where I had to go to probation, and I got out, and there was this gentleman standing, getting out of his car, and I walked in with him, and we chuckled on the way in, whatever, and then I went to the probation office, sat down. Next thing I know, it was that guy that I walked in with was my probation officer. He saw me drive there. He knew I didn't have a license. And so, put me in handcuffs and walked me in front of the judge and gave me another fine. And I had to go to the county clerk and get that figured out. And the bottom line of that story was, when I went back to his office, I really felt bad. I'd done something so stupid. And he goes, I'm going to give you one chance. And this is it, and sat me down. And he said, next time you make a mistake, you better have your fucking toothbrush in your pocket because you're going to go to prison for 5 years. And I believed that, man. And I thought to myself at that point, man, if he doesn't like the way I drive, you better stay off the sidewalk, because I was mad, right? Because well, number one, I got caught, right, which is stupid for what I'd done. But uh, the bottom line is what he didn't know is I'd already made that commitment to myself that I was sick and tired and I wanted to make a change. And so I was going to do whatever it took. And I did. And, I went and got a sponsor. I started working the steps. Not right away. It took me a couple of months to get into that, but I did. And he would always ask me when I go to him for probation, what step are you on? And then, asked me about the step that I was working and so on. And that progressed. So he was my probation officer for 18 months. And at the end of 18 months, I was supposed to be on probation for 2.5 years. And at the end of 18 months, I'd gone to treatment, um, completed and successfully completed treatment, and had my certificate. And to uh, I went to the my probation meeting after I got that, and he said, "How you feel?" I go, "I feel really good. I'm think I'm on the right path." And at 18 months, I had almost all my fines paid off. As a matter of fact, they were all paid off. And I was yeah, I and he goes, "Okay." He goes, "Okay, well, I've never done this before in my whole career, but I'm going to kick you out of probation early." And I thought to myself, all right, he's going to be following me around, just waiting for me to make a mistake. And I'll tell you, I went down that I left his office that day with all my paperwork and everything. Oh, he asked me for my meeting slips because I had to have I had these pages, and I had 7 pages with over 100 signatures on each page, both sides. And he said, I need those. And I told him, no, those are mine. I said, you're welcome to copy them, but I want to like to keep them. And he gave me this stern look, and he thought about it for a second and grinned and said, you know what, you're right. So he took copies of all my meeting slips and all that. And, that really started a pattern for me early on, being required to go to meetings. But what he didn't know is I wanted to go. I was enjoying them. I'd made a whole new crowd of friends, and it set a pattern, right? And for the first 10 years, I was clean. I don't think I missed a day going to a meeting, because I was set in that pattern early on. That I enjoyed it, going to meetings, and I'd go to early meetings. Um, yeah, because I'm not a late night guy, but always been an early riser. But anyway, the funny thing about that man that I hated, those first few months, became one of my best friends. That probation, I still talk to him on a regular basis. He's retired now, um, and like I said, he's written a couple of books, and his name's Conrad Thompson. His books are on Amazon. You can probably look them up, but so he's the gentleman. He actually wrote a lot of the laws for Washington State probation departments, and he started out in Olympia, and through the bureaucracy, and ended up as a probation officer because he wanted to be closer to his wife and home. And so anyway, uh, a really good guy, uh, and he's been a big part of my sobriety all these years. You know, and he's given me actually he got me to go to Olympia the first time, and when I was still in probation, believe it or not, and got me to talk before the legislators back, in like what was it, like the year 2000, somewhere in there. And but yeah, um, trying to change the laws, the DUI laws, and some of the drug laws and things. And I won't get into that, but that's back in the Gregoire days, Governor Gregoire. Um, but anyway, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. I mean, I'm just grateful today that I can look back on that. And my sponsor, uh, and he's gone now. I've had three sponsors that I've outlived, unfortunately, unfortunately. But my last sponsor always would tell me, play it all the way through, kid. Just play it all the way through. What happens if you pick up? And I live that on a daily basis today. Getting people in and out of detox and treatment, and I see them and I tell them the same thing. What happens? I just took a guy, picked him up, and I can always tell. And believe it or not, it's like somebody comes out of detox. I can tell if they're ready or not. And I say, how long? I don't say it, but I think, well, how long will it be before this guy picks up again? And he's back at detox. Um, there are some people that uh, just can't stop, and I get that. There's no accountability. They don't have any accountability. A lot of the people I know that have long-term sobriety today, have done it through the court systems, and now, of course, there's no accountability in the court systems. They just slap their hands and let them go because they don't want to deal with drug addicts, in the jails or whatever it might be, or they, put them on a bus and ship them to Seattle or Olympia or, you know, to Bellingham or somewhere, because they don't want to deal with them in our city, you know. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be able to do this thing with Courage to Change. And it's been really a blessing, and it really helps me. Bottom line is, yeah, we get to help people, but ultimately it's kind of selfish on my part because, it helps me stay sober and helps me stay clean from watching these guys come and go. And it reminds me so much of myself, when I was little younger, that, So I get to talk to him about a little bit about my story every time I pick him up, and builds that trust a little bit more each time. And like Chrissy said, the that success rate is only in our program, right? I don't believe that the success rate in people getting in and out of detox or staying clean and sober has changed since the 50s. And there's a saying, it goes, they come in by the hundreds and leave by the 99s. And unfortunately, I see that today, even a little bit more, maybe so, because there's no accountability, and the drugs today are so much stronger, and there's so much more mental illness caused today by the drugs than there was even, even 5 years ago. We're seeing more and more. And so it's really a double-edged sword. So with this podcast, we're hoping that we can bring awareness to people that don't maybe understand addiction, because really I take people to treatment, and the detox centers I deal with, don't get me wrong, they are great. And that they don't make anybody feel like secondhand citizens, or, they all are very, caring, and want to help people get clean, or help them through the detox process. But I take people to the hospitals and some other programs. They don't understand addiction, and they're treated like secondhand citizens, that they're disposable, like this, housing first model that our state wants to, push, which doesn't work. They're just hiding the fact that people are going in, putting their head on a nice, warm, cushy, hot pillow, with covers, and overdosing and dying in a private room, and anyway, I don't want to get too much into that because it makes me angry.
We'll save that for another
Yeah, we'll
episode.
say that for another one. Anyway, you want something else? What do you want?
No, that was amazing. You're amazing, Mike. Um, I like your road rage stories.
Yeah.
I still hear a glimpse of it every now and again when we're on the phone, and you're driving, where your expletives people on the road. That probably comes with driving 8,000 miles a month. You see a lot more idiots than the
Oh,
average bear.
I'll tell you, this just happened. I was taking someone to detox um, Saturday morning, and I was on the freeway, oh, up by Bellingham, and a white Mercedes, and the freeway was packed. White Mercedes was driving on the shoulder, doing well over 100 miles an hour, with a state patrolman chasing him,
Oh my
right?
God.
And he's swerving in and out of traffic. And I'm just going, he's going to kill somebody. And I just hope it's him and nobody else. I just, yeah, road rage today, for me, I see it all the time. And, now I just let him in. Just let him in. but,
Guys,
uh,
call me to tell me all about it.
but yeah, it's insanity what I see on the road. It's just absolute craziness.
So my story, I'm an alcoholic. I will have 14 years in May. My sober birthday is Memorial Day, and that kind of happened on accident. I was working in a bar, and had a long career as a bartender, which is not the best career for someone in active alcoholism. But um, they took us on a booze cruise for Memorial Day, and I remember leaving, and I remember coming back, but I don't remember anything while we were on or at sea. And we were taking shots of Jägermeister before we left. And I hadn't eaten anything, and I was drinking keg beer. I remember that. So uh, I got fired from that job 7 days later. But similar to your story, Mike, that they fired me for my behavior, but what they didn't know is that I was already done. But I had decided, and I had 7 days sober at that time, but I decided um, when they fired me that it was like the nail in the coffin. And rather than going to the movies, I had my ex-husband take us to a meeting. And because I had been in and out of the rooms for years, I just wasn't ready. But for some reason, this time really hit me. And it was this feeling of just being like emotionally and spiritually shredded, and I was embarrassed, but I didn't know why I was embarrassed. I was a blackout drunk. I was a binge drinker. One was good, three was delicious, so 20 must be the best possible thing. And I was so discouraged by the judgment I was feeling from others about my problem that I thought about moving to Ireland where I could be with my people. I was like, these people are judgy. I'm going to go move where people understand me. Um, but I didn't realize how much social anxiety I had until I got sober. And it wasn't until I was about 6 months sober that I actually took a breath and was okay sitting in my body. Before that, I swear I always wanted to be somewhere else. I could be at the party or at the bar and I wanted to be somewhere else. I could be home, I wanted to be else. And I couldn't be here. And what I was trying to escape was the space between my ears. And unfortunately, it's harder to escape that space. I've even tried moving. I moved from Seattle to Texas and then got kicked out of Texas and then moved to New Mexico and then got kicked out of there and came back to Washington and I couldn't run from it. I couldn't move away from it. And like our friend Landon says, sobriety is the strongest drug you'll ever take. Is that how it goes? Something like that. It's a beautiful quote, but yeah, because it you still have all the emotional moments and all the tumultuous times, but now you get to have them in technicolor. So, but yeah, this has been quite the journey, and I think Mike guilt trips me to stick around. Courage to change sometimes. Sometimes I feel like quitting, and I'm discouraged, and I'm sad, and all the things. But when we hear people say that we help them, and they're in a better place now, I think that it makes it all worth it. Yes. So, yeah, we're excited to get this podcast off the ground, to continue the conversation. Um, and if you want to help our cause at this moment, you can visit ctcrecovery.org and click the donate button. I think that goes to directly to us, and we are a 501c3. Um, yeah,
Follow us on Facebook,
follow us on Facebook. We'll
CTC
have this
Recovery.
podcast shared there, and we're trying to get it on a couple more platforms. And we have some pretty cool guests lined up. And so the next time you see us, it might look slightly different here. This is a brand new setup. Mike wanted to make sure we had the American flag in the back so we didn't look like commies.
Yeah, sure that too. There's other things she made me take down, which I'd kind of put back up. But also I want to mention that when I hit the sidewalk after I got kicked out of treatment and got kicked out of probation, and I was standing there on my own, and I'd be lying if I didn't say the first thought to come to my head was, now I can go use and nobody's going to say anything, right? And see, that'd been my pattern over and over and over again every time I got in trouble. Um, I would get through the court stuff and whatever I had to do, and then just go hit the bar or wherever. And but this time I thought that same thought, and I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. And I went to a meeting. It was the first meeting I'd ever been to, without being court ordered. And that was a whole different thing for me. It was like now I felt free. I was not only out of the court systems and everything else, but I felt free that I go to a meeting and I didn't have to have a slip signed, and it wasn't a reflection of anything else. It was just me being there. And that was really a huge turning point for me. Um,
Mhm.
but I wanted to get that in there before on
Yeah.
this one. So anyway,
Well, and then I'm sure you can see that with the clients that you're transporting too, if they're spousal ordered or court ordered, or their parents are making them. At least I notice it when I'm doing the intakes here at Nick's place. It worries me because if they're not ready, if they haven't hit bottom, they're not doing it for the right reasons yet. And sometimes, those types of pressures work, and then time begots time. They just end up staying sober longer because they realize that it's a better way of being. But um, we are willing to help anyone who is willing to help themselves.
Yep. Yeah.
Sure.
I want to say one more thing.
Okay, Mike.
So, I'm having a hard time. I'm looking at the camera and talking. So if you see me looking up, I'm looking at my picture on this TV that's behind us, the monitor. So anyway, but yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, it's
something.
real awkward.
It is awkward. It's got.
I'm
We got
gonna,
to do something. And to move these cameras so it
we'll
looks like
figure it
I'm
out.
looking
We're
at.
not quite set. This is our first time. We're
Yeah.
just, getting in here, and I was gonna say something derogatory, but I'm not going to. Yes. So thank you guys for being with us today, and many more to come. Appreciate you. Bye.